Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Talk right here on Bigfoot and more. And I have a very special guest with us tonight. And before we get started, as usual, I want to say a big thank you to our moderators as they and the work they do with our show and all. And also, as I always do, is advertise my books a little bit. This is my first book, the Shampe, which is available on Amazon in ebook or paperback, link below. And this is my other book that I've most previously written called Kiamichi Bigfoot, Investigating the Oklahoma Sasquatch, also available on Amazon in ebook or paperback. Those are in the links below. And I'm also going to show another couple of books tonight, which will segue into our guest. And this one here is Voices in the Wilderness. And it's a very excellent book. I've read it probably 4 or 5 times over the years. Love it. And the link to it is in the description as well. And also by the same author, the Quantum Bigfoot is available also Amazon in ebook or paperback. And the link is below in the description as well. And with those last 2 books being shown, I think you know where this is going. And with that, I want to welcome our guest. I've been excited about this all week, and he is with us now. And this is Mr. Ron Moorhead. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you for asking me.
Well, hey, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it very much. And I've been spending the last couple of days rereading your books and trying to write an outline of things I want to talk to you about and all of that. And again, man, I just thank you for coming on and being a part of it.
Oh, that's what I do.
I'll tell you what I want to do is when we get through here, when we end the show, I want to get your address off of you because I want to mail you a copy of my recent book as well.
Oh, thank you.
But anyway, for anyone in the chat that doesn't know, Ron Moorhead, he is the author of Voices in the Wilderness. He brought us the famous Sierra sounds from, man, that's 50 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, been a while.
A while back. And we were talking before the show, and the first time I ever heard the Sierra sounds was back in 1976. I would have been a 9-year-old, and it was on the movie, documentary movie, those Mysterious Monsters. And it played it on that. And I was quite intrigued with that. And Ron's also the author of the Quantum Bigfoot. And I tell you, Ron, you are not afraid to think outside the box, so to speak, when it comes to looking for clues to what these beings might just be and what their nature may be. And you know, to me, honest investigation of any subject, you should be able to follow the clues to wherever they may lead, even if they lead outside of the box, so to speak.
Yeah, that box is what a lot of people caught up in, and it's conditioned on Newtonian physics, which is parameters of certain rules and disciplines that you have to use. And that's what people usually work with, and that's what we were taught in the 5th grade. So we think everything we see here is what we can see or hear with our eyes and ears and nose. But I think I got some information that will help people get outside that box with us tonight, because I was told years ago in the Sierra camp when we took Alan Berry up there, was an investigative reporter, that he said he had a master's degree in science. He says, don't talk about anything strange that goes on up here. He says, just stay with science. So that's always stuck with me. And he passed away a few years ago, and 10 years ago, I guess now. Yeah, wow.
Like
time flies, and anyway, I think I've found the science, and it's accredited science. It's modern science that really relates to some of the anomalies associated with these things. But I get a little bit ahead of myself, David, so just pull me back.
I want to give you all the rain you want. Well, talking about the Sierra sounds, there are some things that really stand out in this mystery that are way up there. One is the Patterson film, that stands out, as very interesting. But the Sierra sounds are right up there with that as far as tangible evidence that points towards the actual existence of these creatures. Now, going back to that, when did you first get wind of the Sierra Camp, what became known as that?
Well, it was friends of mine were hunters. They hunted that area, and Johnson Brothers actually started hunting there in 1958. It wasn't until 71 when these creatures made their presence known by riding around their camp there. And they first thought it was just a bear and a couple bears, but then they realized the sounds wasn't what a bear does. And later, when they went outside, they tried the flashlights and they seen the big track in the mud, 5-toed track, and they realized then they're dealing with something that isn't a bear. And they came out and told the other guys, and they all went back up. So there was 5 of them then. And anyway, one of the guys heard them. They came around the camp again and started making their aggressive sounds, very aggressive sounds. And he just got freaked out, got really scared. And that's what it'll do to you. Fear is your enemy. But he left the next morning, left him a note and said, "I'm out of here." And he hiked out. Well, he came down. The guys didn't come back when they're supposed to, the other ones. So anyway, the wives were worried. They, at that time, don't know what they're dealing with. They don't know if a monster or something going to eat them or what's happening or kill them or whatever is going on. There's something very... But he said, whatever the Johnson Brothers was talking about is real. There's some kind of a monster up there. And they said, well, you got to go back and see if those guys are okay. They're not back. They should have been back by now. So he said, I'm not going to go by myself. Anyway, he invited me to go with him. He said, oh, well, I'll go. So I got involved with him that way. And again, I was friends with them all, but I wasn't a hunter. But I became a hunter just so I could be part of the group after that. And started going through just as often as I could. So that's how it started with me. And I saw the big track when I got up there. He and I got up there, and the guys were just packed up, ready to leave because it's a long trip out. Getting out, you can get out a lot faster. You can get in, mostly downhill, a lot of ways anyway. So anyway, that's how I got involved, and I've been involved with it ever since.
Well, what they were experiencing up there, you mentioned the track they showed you. Now, before you went up there, were they already hearing these vocalizations, or had they seen what was making them up to this point?
They hadn't seen what was making them, but they heard them. And they saw the tracks. That's all. And that's the first year, 71, when they had the encounter. And then I went up there and started having encounters too. And I saw the track when I got up there. I saw the track. And I thank goodness one of the guys had a horse and I rode it out because my legs were like rubber, or jaw, I should say. I thought I was in shape. I stayed in shape pretty good. But I'll tell you what, when you're tracking up at 10,000 feet and you're staying in shape down at sea level, it's a different story. It ever gets kind of light up there and you're not as good as you think you are. So anyway, I got out and started making the trip and started just trying to figure it out. Me and another guy was part of a big mega church down there. So I was raised religiously, so I wanted to find out really what giants were all about, because these things, whatever they were, the giants are huge, and their sounds were huge, and the tracks were huge. So what were they, didn't know, but I got into the Bible studies and started researching ancient texts about giants and all that. Now, I'm not religious anymore, but I'm definitely spiritual, and everybody's spiritual whether you like it or not. And because according to science, according to quantum science, according to Einstein, according to physics, quantum physics, energy, which we all are at the most wonder level, doesn't die. It just changes form. So a religious person will call that you're going to go to heaven when you die because you're going to change into something else. Well, physicists would just say you're going to change forms into something else because energy doesn't die.
Right.
And that's what we are.
Changes form. Yeah. Up to this point, did you have any previous thoughts regarding like Bigfoot or anything like that, or was this your first introduction to it?
That was my first introduction. Well, I'd heard, I think, a little bit about the Patterson film, but didn't think much of it. Didn't until after this. Then I realized, well, wait, there's something. So anyway, I got to see that after this, and just kind of none of us. They weren't hunting for Bigfoot. And nobody's looking for Bigfoot up there. We're calling them Bigfoot, but that's because they have a big foot. I'm not sure what they are. I think I know what they might be. I'll get into that a little bit later if you want to. But I've done this now for 50 years, and I've been pretty much around the globe looking at different anomalies and different things associated with giants. And it's been part of what I've done and what I do now.
Okay. Let me say this to the chat real quick to make this more orderly on that. I'm going to reserve the last part of this show for questions, and maybe I won't miss anybody. So if you will have any questions you have for Ron, and towards the end, I'm going to dedicate that last part toward those questions. That being said, we already had one, and since it is, and it ties into what you're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up. Strangeland asks, Ron, after all the years heading up to your camp, did or do you find the area special for mind and body?
Yes, because it's serene. It's beautiful up there. It's where you meet the heavens. It's high. 8,400 feet is the elevation of the camp. Wow. I can't get in there in the wintertime. It's 700 miles between Lake Tahoe and Yosemite. And just really pristine. I know Warren Johnson, he's passed away also. These guys are passing away, part of the group. And he said it's about as close to heaven as I think I'll ever get, he said. It's just a beautiful area. But that may not be what your question is really getting to. It's just, was there something special about the camp that isn't special somewhere else? Well, I've been in the woods a lot, all over the planet, really. And I just think it's special because of what we ran into up there. These things were around multiple times, which is kind of unheard of. I know Warren Johnson, he wrote a letter to Ivan Sanderson, a cryptozoologist who passed away. So everybody's dying here. Well, not everybody died. We're still alive, aren't we? Yeah. But he thought it was probably a hoax. Nobody has multiple encounters like this with these beings. And even though we had the sounds recorded, of course he didn't hear them. Everything was on cassette recorders those days, just little portable battery operated cassettes. And he sent it off to a guy in Oregon, Peter Byrne. Peter Byrne had a research center in the Dalles, close to the Dalles up there in Oregon. And he thought the same thing. It's probably somebody hoax. But he got a hold of Alan Berry, who was an investigative reporter working at a newspaper actually down in Redding, California. And a little closer to where we were. So he said, if you want to go talk to these guys, here's the story. And so he came down. Now, I didn't know that he thought it was a hoax too. So he thought, but then when he interviewed us, he kind of realized we weren't a bunch of kooks, where something really did happen. He heard the sounds too that the guys had recorded. And so Alan, we took him up there in 72, but not knowing that he was looking for who could be pulling this, who could be doing this. But that's what his job was, to try to disprove it, And I didn't know it till later on, but he was going through our backpacks when we were going on a hike or something like that. He was going through everything, trying to figure out who could do something like this way back here in the wilderness. It's about 8 mile trek into this camp, and it's not an easy place to get to, I'll tell you. And when you do get there, you just want to lay out on a flat rock and enjoy the sun, Till nighttime comes, these critters start coming around, and then you get a little bit anxious. So that's how it kind of started on a roll for me. And it wasn't until Alan Berry, he was taking this more seriously than we were. We thought we'd just run to an unidentified ape, run around out there in the woods somewhere that science didn't know about. And he realized just how significant it was, and he took his recordings and he first took them to I.E. Tybal, who investigated the Watergate tapes, and tried to get them to study them. But they said, well, it's too much for us to take on free. They suggested you get a university someplace, a sound engineer, to attest that the tapes were genuine. Because they said they're too powerful to have been human-made, and that there's no 60-cycle hum. They did say that, which I would have shown pre-recording or re-recording. But anyway, I found Dr. Lynn Curlin at the University of Wyoming, and he took the sounds on an unbiased study and studied them for a year. And he showed, and he's an electrical engineer, a very credible person. He knows, well, he knows how to check those things. But he wrote a paper on it saying that these sounds were not manipulated. They were not slowed down. They were not speeded up. It indicates something with a vocal range outside the human range, but also inside the human range and below the human range. I mean, he showed a graph in his paper in the book that he had. So that was a big hurdle. And he gave his presentation to a huge group up in Vancouver, BC. Anthropology of the Unknown, it was called. That was 1978, I think it was. So that was a big hurdle, but it still didn't get the eye of academia good enough, even though it was a professional paper. And he put that out in the book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, in 1980. And anybody can get that and read it today and get his full report. So that was something. But then in 2008, a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy, his career was a cryptolinguist in the Navy, trained a two-time graduate of the Crypto-Linguistic School of, not crypto, but Language Institute of Technology in Monterey, California. And he claims that they have a language. He came out, actually, he was retired from the Navy and came out and interviewed Al Berry and me both and tried to get the context of the sounds, and we let him have some sounds to go study. He ends up transcribing them, and I vetted him thoroughly through that Language Institute, because I've had a lot of people tell me that they know what they're saying, but he never could tell us what they're saying, but he says it's a language by the human definition of language. That's kind of very, very important. I didn't realize just how important, but they have a language of their own, very complex language, and he transcribed that, and that's just what he does in the Navy. This guy that I had him vetted with at the Defense Institute, which is deal with Department of Defense now, and they said he's more than qualified to determine if it was, because he was trained to study any sound, and if a sound is a language or if it's a code from a foreign government or something like that, if it is a language, is there any deception in it, things like that. And he looked at ours and said there's no deception in those, and it is a language by the human definition of language, which means a morpheme string of words which make a cognizant sentence like I'm doing now. So that's big, and that's unique, and that's another little hurdle. But the final hurdle, I think, that puts a cap on the whole thing, and here you go, it's going to give it away right here. Dr. Philip Lieberman, Brown University, just passed away last month, actually. And he, cognitive research on languages, that's what his specialty was. Very credible person. And he said that only humans have the hyoid bone, the mechanism for vocal language like we're talking now. Now you put those together, that should be the smoking gun of evidence. You know, you got,
right.
They're hybrid. They got a human component to them. And we're either hybrid from them or they're a hybrid from us. I'm not sure which way it goes, but they have a human component. Then you got the Ketchum DNA, which was thumbs down by academia because it had human in the mitochondrial, and also, well, she said the nuclear DNA, which is male counterpart, it just doesn't match anything in the genome bank. So academia gave her thumbs down because it has to be contaminated if it's got a human component to it, because we're the only humans. However, a man now has come out with he's reevaluating that study she did, because she swears that it wasn't contaminated because it has a human component in it. And that's Dr. Harder is his name, and he says that maybe that's he calls it the inner boy. Sorry, I gotta get that word right. Maybe it's just been over eons and eons that maybe it's so close to human it has human in it. But my theory is, and I think it probably holds up better under all this, is that some of them have crossbred with indigenous people over the eons of time. And some of them are more human-like than others, but they have a human component to them. And that's because I believe in aliens, and I'll get into that later if you want me to. But
sure,
aliens have been coming here. My trips around the world and down in Peru and Bolivia especially opened my eyes to the fact that there's been something with much higher technology than we have today doing some stuff on this planet. You see these boulders over 100 ton moved up on this 13,000-foot mountain. carved, put together like a jigsaw puzzle. And
that's Peru, isn't it?
Huh?
Isn't that in Peru?
That's in Peru, Bolivia, yeah. And I went to those places, and you see that stuff with your own eyes. And I mean, there's no mortar; those boulders are put together just like a puzzle. And how they did that, we don't know. But,
Well, regarding that, if the old Native American stories, especially from the Pacific Northwest, are true, that there have been occurrences in the past where these beings have taken a young woman from a tribe and produced an offspring with it, they would have to be very closely related to us to be able to do that.
Yep, they would have 23 pair of chromosomes, where, gorilla, chimpanzee, all those have 24. Yeah, they are.
So, backing up just a little bit here, when you first got wind of that, they took you up there, you saw the track there in the Sierra camp. Was there any inkling of this being a hoax to you, or you know the people well enough to?
I know inkling at all. I know those guys quite well.
Okay, so you already knew them.
Very honorable, straightforward, sober camp. Everything. No, I had no doubt that they were telling the truth. What you wanted to find out is, could anybody be fooling us? But no one can fool you back there without leaving some kind of evidence, and that's what Al Berry was brought in for, to see. We even took a scientist up there to do a full frontal study on it, at the suggestion of a scientist, just to see if there's any evidence of wires or nails or anything like that that could have used as speakers or something like that. But never could find anything, because there never was anything. I mean, it was real. We got glimpses of them. My daughter saw them 3 times. I saw them just once. They're so elusive, so fast, and just very fluid in their emotions. Wow.
So what, I know reading through your books, you experienced a lot of things other than just the vocalizations, which are incredible on their own, the rock throwing, and you even mentioned in Voices in the Wilderness that you even heard metallic sounds on occasion.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the sounds you couldn't identify. I mean, that's just, I had that happen to me in 2011. My last trip, I really heard them chattering too, and I was there, and but there's other metallic sounds that happen too. But one time I thought we was hearing a big tuning fork. I talked about that. And
right.
You couldn't find the source of it. This is the daytime. You're looking up. You can't find what's making the sound. Just and you don't see anything. You hear something, but you don't see anything. And there's a lot of strange things went on up there. But, we wouldn't talk about that too much. Al Berry said, "Don't talk about it." So I respect him a lot. He's a very smart guy. And, so I didn't until I think I got to the bottom of how it happens.
Right. You mentioned Peter Byrne earlier, and I know he didn't contribute anything, but he's still alive, isn't he?
He is. I just talked to him the other day, actually.
My goodness, he's got to be pushing 100 or close to it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he's about 95, something like that.
Wow, and he still gets out and does things.
Well, he don't get out as much as he used to, but he's still around. He's in Oregon.
My goodness.
I've known Peter. I was in Nepal with him, and for a few weeks, a month actually, and that was quite a trip.
Yeah, I'd like to see Nepal sometime. I've got some customers that are students here in town at the local university from Nepal, and I have a standing invitation to visit there if I ever can get away.
You should do it.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned too was a time you guys were walking up the side of the mountain towards where these beings were vocalizing or whatever. Said it almost felt like you hit a force field or something, like you just couldn't go any further.
Yeah, that was Warren Johnson and myself. There was one of these things right outside the shelter, actually. They wouldn't usually interact, they didn't usually make their sounds until we were inside the shelter. Mm-hmm. And so this was going on. We was getting a little brave by then because we knew they hadn't tried to eat us yet. Don't know what it's all about, but
well, that's a positive.
Yeah, that was a positive thing. Yeah, you don't know if they're arguing about the salt and pepper they're going to throw on you or what's going on. Anyway, we thought, well, we jump out the doorway right quick with just two trees like this and a log between them.
Mm-hmm.
We'd jump out right quick and we'll see this thing run away. Bright night. Well, we did that and nothing ran away. So I started walking to this tree, which is probably 30, 40 feet from the shelter. And both of us weren't talking, just walking up to where we knew this thing had to be behind that tree. Huge trees up there. And we both stopped dead in our tracks, just a few feet away from that tree. And we weren't talking to each other. We didn't know what we couldn't go forward. And I do relate that like a force field in Star Trek. I never hit one of those Star Trek. I never was in Star Trek, so I don't know. But that's how I related, because something kept you from going forward. And I don't know what it was, but happened to be one of the times the woods up there. But that'll put the hair back on your neck. And he looked at me and said, I don't know about you, but I can't go any further. And I said, I can't either. So we just backed off. As soon as we got back to shelter, things started mouthing off again. So I think they toy with you. And I brought this up to a scientist. I said, what was that? What could that be? He said, well, it's either we can't work with your fear. Science don't work with fear. And I said, well, we weren't really afraid at the time. We kind of felt kind of secure around these things. And he said, it has to be infrasound then, or pheromones. And of course, thinking, these things had no human part to them at all. It must be infrasound, because infrasound does affect humans, and that's below 20,000 hertz. So I went with that, and still do, really, because pheromones work within the same species. But I don't know. I don't know what stopped us, but something stopped us both, and it was a really weird sensation. But it's something that happened, and that's all I can do is tell you about it. I don't know how it happened.
Right. Well, and the same thing about pheromones you were mentioning, those work within the same species. And I've always kind of wondered, some Bigfoot researchers, and this is not being critical, this is just me wondering, actually take pheromones from certain great apes with them out there and hang them in trees thinking it might attract a Sasquatch. Well, does a chimpanzee pheromone attract a gorilla and vice versa?
I don't know, but I've heard it.
Would that attract an orangutan? So, I mean, if a Sasquatch is not a chimpanzee or gorilla, why would they be attracted to?
I don't know, but we never did that. I don't know. I know a lot of people do that. They were selling those pheromones to researchers who wanted to try that. And, I don't know of anyone that ever had results with it.
Yeah, I haven't heard any. I know personally some people that have done that without any. But to me, if it's another species, it might just stink to them if they pick it up at all. But
well, I don't think they're all the same. You can't just say there's a Sasquatch or I think they're different, and they could be different because of what the nuclear DNA represents, which is outside the gene bank. Out of 227 billion samples, there's no, and the ones that Melvin Ketchum had studies, there's no matching of that, and that's crazy, which brings a foreign entity into it. Now, when you see what I've seen all over the world, these different aliens have been here, they've been coming here for eons of time. And you see evidence of that all over the world, not just Peru and Bolivia, but in Turkey and all over, how they did some of the things that they did, we just don't know, but they certainly did it, and used much higher technology than what we have to do what they did. But when you see that, you realize that possibly they intervened and manipulated the genome of different species, primates, possibly the troglodytes. I think I don't disagree with Darwin's theory. I just think it's incomplete. The troglodytes did evolve, but then something, and I think, I would say, here it is, God changed the troglodytes and gave us who we are, put our sentiency and our being who we are as a race of humanoids, put that into us. And that's been just a few thousand years ago, but that's what we are, and we've been given dominance on this planet, and not dominion, excuse me, not dominance, dominion. These things will tear you apart if they wanted to. And in fact, that's what the story is of Like Alaska was last year. But anyway, I think different species, the different alien species, have manipulated the genome of different species on this planet and caused Bigfoot. Because the Patterson Bigfoot, I don't think is what we were dealing with at the camp. We might have been dealing with something just totally alien. I don't know. Whatever it was, they have language. They're very, very intuitive. They're just, there's something, and we should have seen them more often. I got to tell you. There's times when I'm laying there in that shelter all over this world. I had headsets on with stereo, best stereo cassette player you can get, battery operated. And I had stereo speakers outside the shelter on each side. And I hear this thing walking around out there, bipedal walking there, just hear it walking around you. And I'm waiting for it to crack in the shelter's light, because we're just, the shelter's just a bunch of cables wrapped around a circle of trees and deadfall leaning up against them, but you could see light through them. You could hear it walking out there, but you never seen it break the light. And I often wondered, why did I see it break the light? But I just thought, well, it didn't. Or maybe it was further away than I thought it was. But Johnson's got glimpses of them once or twice, I think. My daughter has saw them 3 times, and I saw them just once. Out of all that interaction we had, don't know what they were trying to say to me that night in '74 when I did get to see one, because they started interacting with me and my buddy Bill outside. We packed some supplies on our horses and mules, and that was, they knew we were coming. They knew where we were going, and they got there before we did. And when it started getting dark, just at dusk, they started beating on the rocks and pounding trees and doing rhythmically codes back and forth. And they started whooping. And we had learned from the previous episodes where they'll just be still and don't do anything, and they come closer. And we didn't shine lights, just sit there and I kept fixing our food on the stove, and we packed and reassembled her and that year. And anyway, that's when they started yelling at me, saying something. Fortunately, I got to my saddlebag, pulled out the little cassette recorder, and recorded. That's my second CD that I made, my interaction with them.
Your horses, were they seemingly overly bothered by the presence of these beings?
No, and that's a good question, because a lot of people think they should have been.
I have a reason to ask that too.
So. Yeah, and they were not. They were when a bear would come around. A bear would come around sometimes, and believe me, they would really be rowdy. That's the mule, he'd start kicking everything. But when these things were around, they just were frozen, like had their ears pointed towards the sounds where it was coming from.
Yeah, I have a friend down here east of me that was having these creatures coming up by his property, watching his kids play and stuff. And he had some video of later at night where these forms were running out of the trees in amongst his horses, and the horses were just going about their business. And I thought, now that's peculiar, because these horses, if they felt threatened, they'd be raising Cain out there, and they were not. So, and that's what I was asking you that, because I'm reading your book. I don't remember reading anything about the horses just like stampeding away or anything when this was going on.
Well, they didn't. One time we thought we heard a stampede of horses coming around. That's just one of those sounds that you couldn't identify again. No horses were there.
Did you ever feel like you were personally in danger by these beings? Or?
I think the word is concerned, because I knew by the time I went up there, these things had not hurt these other guys. And so I had a sense, plus I had a self-security about myself, like nothing's going to hurt me. I was kind of arrogant then. Maybe I'm still a little bit arrogant. But I feel like nothing's going to bother me as long as I know who I am as a human being on this planet. And as long as I have that security within inside myself, I feel like I'm okay. And I felt that way up there. And of course, not to say we go up there without guns. We always had guns, because you never knew. I mean, I got a hat with a 52-inch rattlesnake band around it. It was 52 inches around my head. There's other dangers besides what we might have considered Bigfoot to be a danger, but they never did threaten us like that. You'd think they were threatening when they had their sounds, because their sounds were very threatening, but I think now in retrospect, those sounds were to each other. Maybe they were arguing over what to do about either us or the food that was left out that they were taking, or don't know. But at the time, you kind of thought they're going to come in after us in the shelter. So you're all sitting there with your guns. And we had high-powered guns with us, and always did carry a gun. It was a hunting camp. That's what you do at a hunting camp. And sometimes you go up there early in the year when hunting season, and you just take a gun to get a grouse or something, so you have something to eat that night.
When's the last time you were up there?
2018.
Oh, okay.
I went up there with David Paulides. He filmed the Missing 401, The Hunted.
Yeah.
And he did about a 15-minute section on me in the camp. And yeah, I trust David. I've known him for years and years, and I trust him to be very honorable. He wouldn't reveal the location. Not that he could find it again, because it was all on fire when we were up there.
Well,
we was up there for a week, and we were a little concerned because we had to get packed in, and he was going to come back and get us in a week. And what do you do if fire gets to you first?
Yeah.
Because there was his filmer had it, but we had about 3-4 mule loads, I think, of equipment that we took in, just so they could do the filming that they wanted to do.
So you just froze. Okay, there you are. If I get kicked off here once in a while, my internet acts crazy sometime, and I just switch over to my phone when it does that. So if that happens, just keep talking. I catch up. So anyway, moving along, at what point did you start kind of leaning towards there may be something more to the nature of these beings than just an undiscovered ape running around in the mountains?
Well, right off the bat, we knew there was something different about them because of the stuff that was going on. I mean, we was all in the shelter one time. We thought our camp was being ripped apart out there, with the cans being strung around, and I think our barrels being ripped off from the trees we had cable to. You look out there later and nothing's changed. Man, that'll throw you a loop, because how'd that happen? How could that be? Because they had such an advanced vocal mechanism, they could make those sounds with their vocal mechanism, or did they hypnotize us all and make us all think we heard that, or were we listening to another dimension? I mean, you don't know. You kind of just put that up on the shelf and think about it later. But as I thought about it later in years, I thought, it has to be an answer to this stuff. And too many people reported it, because I started interviewing people, talking to them about. They found out my involvement in it, and they want to tell me their story, and a lot of their stories parallel with things that I had encountered myself up there. So I found that quantum physics is pretty much where I leaned into. It wasn't like a switch; it was just something I grew into from thinking and reading and studying. And it's called modern science, and it's a little over 100 years old. But Max Planck, who won the Nobel Prize for quantum physics, was in 1918. That's just over 100 years ago. And that's what Einstein, Tesla, Bohr, Schrodinger, all those guys, physicists, were into. And it kind of parallels. You got even later on when Dr. Edgar Mitchell, he said it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. It takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. That's important, because he knew something that most people didn't want to know, but he knew that aliens existed. They're here now. They've been coming for eons, and there's a hybridization program going on, I do believe. I'm not just the one that thinks that, but I think that there's something. We're in some interesting times right now. I think we need to know who we are as humans and be prepared for what's fixing to happen.
It does feel like we're on the cusp of something.
Mm-hmm. More so than any other time in my life.
Yeah, the technology, even the government finally kind of admitting about the UFO stuff is just, that was revealed and going on. And it seems like, I don't think people really grasp the significance of that. To something that they were debunking all this time, and then like going, oh yeah, that guy that we said he didn't work for us. Well, yeah, he did, and then who's that? Luis Elizondo, or whatever. He said, yeah, I worked at the Pentagon, did this. They said, not, don't know him, never was here. And now it's like, well, yeah, we know him and he was here. The fact
yeah, we now know that we can talk about that stuff because Roswell was not a weather balloon. Okay? It was a crashed UFO, and one of them survived till 1953. And there's been back engineering technology off the crash. It's all, a lot of stuff's coming out now about that. A lot of these guys, it's just been swore to secrecy, can release so much information. And I got to tell you, the government's only going to allow you to have what they think you can handle. But we're being slowly but surely inundated into there's something fixing to happen. I think it's the aliens. The Space Force was figured, was put in effect because of that. And I think, there's a lot of people are seeing UFOs now. And they've been seeing.
I mean, it kicked in overdrive. It seems like during like World War II, when our technology was jumping, and then the first atomic bomb tested there, and it just seems like since then it's just been in overdrive.
You're right. Yeah, I think that got the attention of a lot of aliens think we're going to destroy this Earth, and we are doing just that. And I think humanity's in for a shock pretty soon if they don't. We need to stop hurting the Earth, stop hurting ourselves, stop killing people, get the wars over with, stop this stuff because it's just taking us all down. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. We are energy, frequency, and vibration. And the Earth is even living, it's a living something that's got a vibrational frequency. And we live in a third dimensional environment, but there's, according to quantum physics, there's 10 more dimensions, 11 if you want to count fourth dimension of time, which we do because we live in linear time, we think. And it's just more going on than what meets our eyes. We only see within certain parameters. We only see within 430 terahertz between that and 770 terahertz. And all these other frequencies exist outside of that. But that's light's frequency. We are given that as human beings to see. That's what we see. We don't smell like a bear does. Bear can smell 2,100 times better than we can. But our olfactory sense does not allow us to do that. So we are limited with what we have in this physical body. But there's more going on than just the physical body. We have our cognizance, we have our consciousness, when people have telekinesis. I think we all have a telepathy ability. And I get into that in my Quantum Bigfoot book, how the pineal gland, the third eye, is just so important to open that up. And there's just more going on and more we have to become aware of than what we think is just what you. Hey, I gotta say this one. Newtonian physics. I don't think I vibrate like that. That's good.
I wasn't laughing at you, Ron. I just saw that.
But Newtonian physics is based on everything being material, physical, measurable, predictable, right? Our five senses. Well, quantum physics is unpredictable. And you don't want to get that mixed up with paranormal. Because you got people who say, oh, that's paranormal. Well, quantum physics is not paranormal. It's a science. And it's a very credible science. It just for the minute level of what we are, which is energy. And but you get into paranormal and it's more like pseudoscience, it's just a bunch of stuff that people think and they want to put it in a parallel with science, but it's not science at all. So there's a total difference between those two. And for people to say you're paranormal or something, no, I'm not. I'm studying quantum physics, and it's just important for people to distinguish the difference between those two. Studying quantum physics because of thank you, Greg. I'm reading those two. Is that okay?
Okay, right.
My gosh! I get carried away. It's already quarter 10.
You made a very good point of difference and I've heard people talk about your book Quantum Bigfoot, how you go off into the paranormal. Really, that's you're really not, because you're approaching it from a scientific look, if you will. There now, I'll admit a lot of that's over my head, and you've obviously studied it a lot more than me. But is there a possibility that what some people consider paranormal now is just undiscovered things that will be common knowledge later on.
Oh yeah.
And some of that. So
Well, I agree with that totally. What some people call paranormal is normal with knowledge. Once you find out what the science is behind how that happened, just can't use your imagination. Well, I think this or I think that. You got to find out what science really covers that area. For years, I had people tell me they saw one of these things disappear. Well, nothing can disappear, so you throw those out with baby water. This is one of the reports. The trackways stopped. Well, they just stopped. Well, that means a helicopter picked them up, right? No researcher will throw those out with baby water too. However, if you really understand how that can happen with density and with light or frequency and vibration, if somehow these things have learned how to or know how to instinctively or however to change their vibrational frequency and change from matter into energy. It also could be the orbs that you see. And by the way, energy and matter are interchangeable. I'll say that again. Energy and matter are interchangeable. And that's Paul Dirac won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter. You got matter, you got antimatter. And then that was established by CERN, sorry, it's getting late for me, but
Large Hadron
Collider in CERN in 2012. So it's a fact. Energy and matter are interchangeable. That's E equals mc squared. That's Einstein's equation too. So can anything disappear? Yes. If you find the frequency of anything, I think that's how our masters did their miracles. They knew the frequency. Somehow they manipulate the frequency. You can manipulate the matter. And if these things have learned or know the frequency, how to change their matter into energy, they would pixelate out and probably through the fourth dimension into their fifth, where they go, I believe. It's all speculation on my part now because I don't know this. I just suspect it. But the trackways would disappear because they wouldn't have density anymore. And that's happened to me. My daughter had a sighting, Rhonda. We found the trackway deep, trying to see where this thing went. Followed it, all of a sudden it just stopped. Well, you're dumbfounded because where does this thing go? You look up a tree, to jump to a tree. No trees there would support this. And because these tracks were this deep and couldn't make a print in the dirt that it was in. And I looked for a boulder, could have jumped to the brush, where could it have gone? And no, it just gone. And I've heard other reports of people seeing these things pixelated out. The predator effect is what they call it. And in this 401, the Hunted, David Pilates wrote filmed about. Right after my section, though, it was about 15 minutes, there was a lady seeing one of these things pixelated. They call it the predator effect because it looks like the Predator movie, where it just pixelates, goes out. But for years, I've heard people describe it just like that. And I thought, for a long time, I had a guy tell me he was up in Alaska and take me to a place up above Fairbanks where he saw one of these things. And anyway, that's a long story, but he saw it disappear. And I hesitate to talk like this because people are in the funny farm, but this is what's being reported. I think we talked about it earlier before we came on. I was up in Alaska in that Killer Bigfoot series that the Discovery Channel put together. And I just want to say out loud, that thing, it was not scripted. What's happening up there was real. And I know it. I flew over in the helicopter. I looked at the area. I think I know what the problem was years ago. They were fishing it. They were over timbering it. Anyway, I imagine if a 10 or 12 foot tall, hairy looking beast come out screaming at you because they didn't like what you're doing, you'd have shot at it. I imagine they were shooting at it. That would piss anybody off.
Well, and that, historically, the encounters where a Sasquatch has been, quote, aggressive or harmed a person, whether it be the Mount St. Helens Ape Canyon situation of 1924 or the story that Teddy Roosevelt relayed from the Bauman thing. Both of those bad encounters, put it that way, were preceded with a person shooting at or shooting one of these beings.
Yeah.
So
that bad. Yeah.
That would put anybody in a bad mood.
Yeah, put me in a bad mood. Somebody shot me.
Somebody was
I wouldn't like it at all. But Fred Beck said he thought that it was shot and they couldn't find the body.
Right.
But yeah, it would, yeah.
And you've been really around the world investigating possibilities for the origins of these things. You've been to Russia with Dr. John Bindernagel, which I had the privilege of meeting him long ago, and Jeff Meldrum. You've been, I guess you've looked into the Lovelock Cave situation with the legend of the red-haired giants there. Did you find anything on those trips that would help you to develop your view on what these beings might actually be?
Well, only that, of course, the red-haired giants in the Lovelock Caves, the Paiutes swear that they were cannibalistic. Now, what took me to Peru and Bolivia was the elongated skulls that are reported down there. I saw those. We actually demummified one. And
you actually saw one?
Oh, yeah, there's more than one down there. There are a lot of them.
You've seen the remains of the giants?
They weren't giant. They're just, I got one behind me here, a duplicate of one. Yeah, there's no sagittal suture. We have two pryals, one on each side of our head, the sagittal suture down there. These don't have a sagittal suture. They have just one elongated skull, one parietal, and back of the back with two pinholes in it. And don't know what that's all about, but they had 25 to 30% more brain matter than we had. And yet the Incas would cradleboard their youth, the royalty, to try to get them to have the same attributes that we think the pre-Inca people, we call them the Paracas people, had, which were responsible for the megalithic structures that are down there pre-flood. And so it took me to see if that had anything to do with the sagittal crest that's reported on Bigfoot so much up here. Well, it took me into Central America, where I've been to the Yucatan quite a bit and all of it. The stories about the Incas warring with the Aztecs and the Mayans in Central America. Then you got the Mayans warring with the giants in the north. That puts us up in North America here, which takes me to the Lovelock Caves. I've been there 4 times trying to get evidence, trying to find something, but they won't show you anything anymore. They're taking it all away. Smithsonian, they say. And yet the Paiutes still stand by their story. The BLM, I wrote a letter to them, was trying to get, no, they were just robust people. There's no giants. Well, what do you call an 8 foot tall? Is it a giant? If everybody's 8 foot tall, I guess it wouldn't be, but they weren't. But you also got the minaret skulls, which were found, a skull, which was found by Dr. Denton when he took a Boy Scout troop into the minarets in the Sierra Nevada mountains. That's just west of the Lovelock Caves. And then you've got the Martindale mummies, which were found in 1998, I think, or 1898, something like that. And they were 8 foot tall. It was a mummified female with a baby. And just all kinds of stories like that most people don't even want to research or look for because they want to live in your little bubble here. We all live in a bubble, thinking that everything's just here and there.
Why do you think that Bureau of Land Management or the government, why would they want to hide evidence of these giants? I mean, if they're just 8 foot tall or whatever, they're big people. So what? Why would they want to do that? It's a question I've asked often.
Yeah, it disrupts the narrative that they want to keep. If they don't have control of it, they'll down it. So just like they do the UFOs, just like they did at Roswell. If they can control it, they don't want us to know about a lot of this stuff because that would just would put a kink into Darwinism, a kink into a lot of religions. It's just going to have to rewrite the history books. It just comes out, but there's more to it than that. We're going to be inundated with more and more sightings of these things being seen. More and more UFOs are going to come in. We're going to start seeing aliens, and they're going to start identifying themselves, I think, for too many more years or months even.
Well, I think we're at a point. I mean, you're a few years older than me, but if you go back to, could you imagine if the UFO mystery was revealed to people as real back in, say, the 1950s? What would have happened to society then? I mean, we know what happened with the War of the Worlds fake radio.
Well, everybody digs a tunnel and goes in a hole.
It would be crazy. But I think we're almost to a point right now, if they come out and said, you know what? Those hairy things that you've been reporting running around in the woods, yeah, they're real. Those things that you've been seeing buzzing around, yeah, they're from another planet. I think now the majority of us would go like, well, we kind of figured that anyway.
Yeah.
Do you think we're there yet?
I think we're being inundated with the movies we're seeing, the TV. We're being slowly but surely given this information. Just what they think we can handle. And that's all they're going to give us. But they want to control the narrative.
Now, hey, I do still know, and if you think anybody out there thinks this way, I don't mean this as an insult at all, so please don't take it that way. But I know people personally that still believe if they're aliens, they've got to be demons.
Well,
and yeah, I'm sure with your travels, you ran into folks that think that as well. So yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is there still would be that element of people that if the government did reveal that, yes, these things are real and we've been holding them back, that would have that negative effect on. But I think for the biggest part, I think we're kind of grown up enough to accept it, I think.
Well, I think there's negative and positive entities out there. I don't think they're all the same. The agendas are different. The different aliens have different agendas. So whatever they did to the DNA of different species depends on how they programmed it, how they made it, and what its agenda is. Yeah. I don't know where to go with this.
Right, I understand that because that's opening up a whole new bag of worms. But I do think that we have developed more, just like when they revealed the things about the UFOs. They're not saying they're aliens, but they're saying, yeah, we don't know what they are, and yeah, we're looking into it. People didn't react like meh, you know, for the biggest part, you know. There's quite a few questions starting to stack up over here. Do you feel like taking a few questions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Let me back up to some I missed. Let me see. Where's Malcolm? And this is something maybe you could help with. This is my friend Malcolm. This is a personal friend of mine.
Good whistles open and closed dimensions.
Frequency.
I don't know. I think the frequency of such a whistle as a whistle. I don't know. You know, that's a good question. These things have whistles. They whistle. I got recorded whistles on the CDs that I sell, and that we record up there in the mountains. But I wouldn't put it past them. I think they have to just find the right frequency for anything like that to happen. What causes a portal, I don't know. NASA studies portals, and they've been studying for a long time. Portals exist. It's a man-made anomaly on the Earth. Click, log in, expression. And
that is especially down here in southeast Oklahoma, they have clear cuts so much.
You know, that's a nerve. That hits a nerve with me because these things have something going on with trees. They don't like people cutting trees, and I think for so many people that have seen these things when they're cutting trees, or especially when there's clear cutting going on, I get reports people seeing these things. And that's why I say if up at Portlock, if they were over cutting the trees, and they were, you see some old growth that had really been cut a long time ago. If they were logging that place out, that would have probably disturbed these things. But again, it depends on the agenda. If they were tearing people apart, like they say they were, like 30 people, I think, turned up missing or mangled or something, you don't know why. You can't. We only guess, but if I was guessing, my suggestion was offer them something, try to make peace with whatever's there. And there's another element too. I think our government could possibly be messing with the genome itself. You know, we can change the DNA of things, and if they've tried to create a super warrior of some type, that's a little spooky.
That's well, you know, Russia, Stalin tried to do that. He was successful. But my gosh, could you imagine being the poor ladies volunteering for that? I mean, what was he trying to cross, an ape and a human?
Well, that's what they were doing, but I think we're more sophisticated than that. We're probably taking the ape and just messing with the genome of it, and finding something. I don't know how it's done, but
that was World War II.
I've heard this theory. Yeah, I know, but I've heard this theory before that a super warrior can be done where it has no emotions, and that's one thing I think we have that's so important. And before we get away, I want to talk a little bit about that, how important it is that we do what we're supposed to do to raise our personal vibrational frequency. The higher it gets, the better it gets. The less sick you'll get, the better everything will become for you and for the earth. We got to stop cutting the trees. Well, that's a hard thing to do, though. Unless it's dead, then you can cut it up for firewood or something. But this is going to sound crazy, but
go ahead.
I know a couple of pretty credible people that have seen these things go in and out of trees, and you also see them changing from a Bigfoot into an orb. And that's the energy. Now, the orbs were following the Johnson brothers around up there. Didn't have that happen with me, but I did see a UFO up there once. And of course, the sounds are another story. But boy, there's a lot to be said here.
Yeah, and I had and this gentleman on here, David Perkins, he was in the chat earlier. He's another personal friend of mine, and his mother was talking about the correlation between and he's a Comanche from the Comanche tribe, talking about, you've heard talking of the little people in Native American language, about the orbs associated with being in the presence of these little people, and how some people would actually see the little people and another person would just see an orb. And that was the first that I'd heard of that in conjunction with that. But in the orbs in conjunction with a Bigfoot sighting, there's even been some people that are very solidly into this must be an previously thought extinct ape that have seen orbs now and wondered what if or any connection there is there. So yeah, it's a lot of mystery worth looking at. And one thing, man, Ron, you are fearless about looking into any possibility there, and I don't think
I'm afraid of anything.
You're thinking so much.
I rode the backs of manta rays. I swim with the hammerhead sharks. You're either going to live or die. I don't care, because once you get my age and seen everything, why not? Not if
I'm speaking from personal experience here. I'm just 55 at this point, but I'm old enough to know that I don't want to live in this plane forever and ever. I look forward to something else eventually. That's
well, there'll be something else for all of us eventually.
And I know we just met, but I do have a background in theological studies and stuff like that. I've been in ministry in the past, but gotten older, I'm more consider myself more spiritual than religious, as you put it earlier, and simply. And I know you got to be careful talking about that, because I would not want to insult anybody's sincerely held belief for any amount of money, not for anything. I wouldn't want to do that. Your spiritual journey is your spiritual journey, is the way I look at it. It's a very personal thing.
Well, I think life here is about experiences. I think it's very, very important that we respond to experiences in a positive manner, with love and compassion. And if you respond to experiences, no matter what it is, with love and compassion, you're going to help yourself, and you're going to help whatever you're dealing with. The little old lady out in front who double her medication in the morning won't move because the light turns green. It's easy to get mad at her when you're right behind and you're late for work or something, but have compassion. And I think that's the key to everything that's going to be worked out for you is love and compassion. And I firmly believe that. And, if I go out of this life because my arms get ripped off by a Bigfoot, or if I go out just because whatever.
Let's hope not that.
Well, we're all going to go sooner or later.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I just want to say what I've experienced and how I think now. And hope it helps somebody else in their research or in their life's journey. It's all about experiences, and I think we have to balance ourselves. It's important to understand your heart. That's your gut feeling. Have it in coherence with your brain so that they're working together, so that your analytical mind doesn't say go over here, but it's going by what your heart feels. That's your gut feeling. So have those things working together. That all works with the meditation and you receive through your pineal gland. I think that's where meditation comes in. And once that's all in coherence with each other, everything's going to be so good for you. And we have to balance our karma. That's one thing. People say, well, why don't they help us if they're so advanced? Well, they're not supposed to interfere with our decisions. And can they mind speak? It's quantum entanglement. Do fish mind speak when they're spooling together under the water?
Starlings, when there's a big flock of starlings.
Yeah.
They all
birds. The
birds.
See them all flocking together. They're quantum entangled. We are all one energy. We're all from one source. We think we're separate, but if you learn how to be one with that energy, that one consciousness that's in charge of everything. I say in charge. He's in charge of giving us our free will. And we all have free will. So make the right decision and everything will turn out good for you.
Keith McDonald asked, do you know if there's still activity going on at the Sierra camp?
At the camp today? Well, no, I don't know. I haven't been up there since 2018. I did fly over in a small plane. I'm also a pilot. And I've seen where the area, several acres around where camp is, was not burnt.
Okay.
The whole mountain, a lot of the mountain was charred. So it's a big area. And I think there was like 17 forest fires going on when we were up there. Didn't know that till we got out. But just, no, I don't know. And I talked to Bill, my good friend. He's my packing buddy. We used to take horses and mules up there all the time, pack supplies in and out. But he don't know if anybody's been up there. Of course, the Johnsons aren't going up there anymore. The heirs of the Johnsons still go up there and hunt once a year. Well, I think they do, but I don't. Bill didn't know of any of them that gone up there since the fires. Okay. The trail's been closed off. I say trail. There's only a trail halfway through there. And you just got to know where it's at after that. So no, I don't know.
Okay. Here we have David. Well, you can read the questions I'm popping up there, can't you? David Weathers asks, are you comfortable in saying that yes, Sasquatch has killed people in certain instances?
I would guess that. I mean, if you're going to believe the history of Portlock, yes. Yes.
And you think it sounds like maybe some of these acts of aggression, like what reportedly happened in Portlock, may be to like what you were talking about, overfishing or just abuse of the territory there, possibly?
That's my theory. That's what I think. And that's just because of what they don't like us cutting trees. I tell you, that's a big deal for them. We live because of trees. We breathe what they give. They take what we breathe out. I mean, we're just supposed to be one with all this, and yet we're killing it. We're killing the earth. And if somebody pushes the wrong button someday, I think aliens have intervened before. I get off the subject. Thank you for your amazing country. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Little Star Mysteries.
Yeah, that's my friend from Ohio there. He has a YouTube channel that he shares a lot of the old historical Bigfoot accounts with, and he even zooms in on some of the areas using Google Earth that those old sightings took place at. Does a very good job with it.
Well, Fred Beck.
Sorry?
No, Howard Osman. I think Howard Osman. Same year Fred Beck, but Howard Osman. I went up there to explore that one time on my plane. And took around a whole day, slow flying around trying to find the bowl he said he was in. But he said they chattered when he was held for 6 days by a family of Bigfoots. He said they chattered amongst themselves. Well, I said that was in John Green's book, The Apes Among Us. So them chattering is not something new. We just have to be in the right spot to record it and have it analyzed.
Yeah. Now, most of the vocalizations that I've heard that and I did not see the Bigfoot actually making it himself, but that I attribute to it have been whistles and whoops. I did hear kind of a chattering sound like that one time, not exactly like what you were recorded, but I had caught a glimpse of a what I believe to be a smaller Bigfoot across a creek from me summer before last. And I mean, it was going, as soon as my eyes locked on it, it shot off through the woods, and it did not make any sound when it went through the woods, which was very strange. But after it disappeared into the trees, I heard kind of a brief, low guttural chatter, very briefly, where it had disappeared into. So, I don't know. It was very, very quick and fleeting. Now, the whistles that I've heard were kind of kind of like a tea kettle, as close as I can say, but they didn't feel like they were coming from the lips. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
it makes all the sense in the world. They don't come from the lips; they come from the vocal mechanism that's been studied. Our whistles, in fact, I got those on my CD. Have you heard the whistles that we recorded?
I've not heard those yet.
They're beautiful. They're very harmonic, and that's the fact. They don't whistle through the lips like we do.
But the most now the whistles I'm hearing and talking about that I heard, that was witnessed by me and a friend of mine. We were in this area that I was talking about to you before we came on. We were fishing this creek because I like to catch my dinner and cook it over the campfire, in a skillet. It tastes better, when it's fresh. And something was pacing us in the underbrush, and first thought was as a person, because it really did sound bipedal, and it would let out this whistle once in a while, not real loud and powerful, but kind of subdued. But it was almost kind of a tea kettle type, but just not quite as high pitched, but that same consistency. And that was my friend Brian Baker, which he's not in the chat, but he and I both heard that. That had been back in 2003 down in that area. If you ever make it to Oklahoma, Ron, I'll take you down there where I'm talking about.
That sounds like a good idea. Yeah. There's I know some people who bought some property in Oklahoma and they've been having Bigfoot stuff going on there.
Okay. See, here's one. Have you heard them laugh?
Well, yeah,
feel it deep in your chest.
It's interesting somebody would ask that question, because the night when I was recording, it almost sounds like they were laughing at me trying to mimic, because I was trying to mimic the sound they were making when they were yelling at me something. I would mimic back, and even Bill said, "Sounds like they're laughing at us." Well, there was a young voice in there too, a small one. I could tell it was a small Bigfoot. We also got a 7 or a 9-inch track and 18-inch track in the snow up there one time. I think it was a mother and an adolescent. But yeah, they will toy with you because they think that we think we're smarter than them, and we're not. Around the woods, they're king, like an elephant in Nepal. Because they walk through there, they're masters of the jungle.
You've rode on one of those elephants, haven't you?
Oh, for a week, yeah, it hurt your butt. Yeah, about a 19-foot restrictor back there.
Wow.
That was interesting. I got between a rhino one time. I was going to take a picture of this male rhino. We didn't realize there was a female over here. Anyway, she screamed out, and that elephant reared up. And I mean, it bolted. And I was trying to hold my camera, trying to get a picture. I could not get a picture, but I don't know if the rhino was chasing us or not. But kind of funny now, but it wasn't funny then.
Yeah. It's funny how there are some things that once you survive it, you can look back at the humor of the situation. Here's a question. Ruger Ridge says, so do you think they can throw their voice?
Interesting question. Yeah, I know Melvin told me one time, Dr. Melvin, that we have remnants of a lot of primates have air sacs. And I interviewed a lady, she was on Sasquatch Chronicles too, episode 515, if you want to hear this. She was over here at a business meeting. She went to the coast to take a picture of the sun going down. And she had her camera set up on the rocks along the coast and the sandbank up. Anyway, these Bigfoot come walking by there, didn't see her. She didn't know a thing of it. No idea what a Bigfoot was. She's from the UK. And the male went out in the water, the ocean, and was pulling out seaweed, throwing it back to the female. They were doing something with it and throwing it over the shoulder. And there's 2 females and a male and 2 adolescents. And she got scared, but she thought, I gotta get a picture of this. I wasn't gonna believe this. So she took the camera, dust cover off her camera lens and dropped it, and they heard it. The male heard it. He started coming back towards her, and the female stopped him, but he was screaming, and she said his neck swelled out when he'd scream at her. And that's air sacs. Now, sometimes they have their air sacs in different places, but if that's the case, then maybe they can throw their voice. Because I know there's times when we record them and it sounds like they're holding the microphone almost, but you don't see them unless they're cloaked or something like that, which maybe, I don't know. But if they can throw their voice, that's how the howler monkeys get their amplitude so much. They got these air sacs in it. So these things have air sacs, at least the ones this lady witnessed. And she's, by the way, I talked to her personally. She's 7 languages fluently. She's a linguist. And she drew me a picture of what she saw. And it's really, her report was very credible. She went back and tried to turn in because she fainted after that. And she don't know how she got back to her car. She figured she was drugged back to her car. So can they throw their voice? I wouldn't put it past it.
Okay. You was talking earlier about the DNA thing, and I was really curious about that. I've spoke to Scott Carpenter several times, and he was involved to extend into that as well, wrote about it. And I've also read the book by the other gentleman that was kind of in a debunking mood. I'll just put it that way. He's a Harvard guy. And you know who I'm talking about? I can't call his name, but he wrote a book that's debunking the stuff that Dr. Ketchum come up with or attempting to. And I've read both of theirs. Is he the one that you're saying is kind of changing his mind a little bit on something?
I don't know. I'm not sure who you mentioned, but this guy's name is Harter, Harter. He wrote a paper, a pretty extensive paper on how the DNA that she was taking may have just been, what they call it, integration, mitochondrial integration, where it just slowly became part human over the years, over the eons. Of course, I have a theory that maybe some of these things have been here longer than we have as a human species.
Okay.
And you got the Neanderthal, you got different types of troglodytes that were going on, and I think DNA has been manipulated with some of them by aliens. Just put it out there.
Right.
Yeah,
I was just wondering if he was and I cannot think of his mind. I've read his book too, but be honest, a lot of the stuff he's putting in there is so much outside of what I know. I can't even make an educated opinion on that. But I do know people that were involved with Melba's, and you were as well, I guess. No,
I wasn't. I just know where I wasn't involved in the DNA study. But,
okay. It's very, very interesting.
Scott was. You really want to know his book right here.
Right.
Truth Denied. It really gives you the scoop on how she got debunked.
Right.
Not really debunked, but how people were debunked. Well, you think about it, the way he puts it, he did a good job on telling us.
He did, and I spoke to him on the phone about it too. The only reason I was bringing it up is I was wondering if the guy that was trying to debunk it, if he was the one you were mentioning that's kind of changing his mind on some of it now.
I don't know if it's the same guy or not, but actually, Dr. Meldrum, Jeff Meldrum, gave me the article that he wrote because he was all enthused about it because he didn't believe Meldrum's Ketchum's report either, but this other side of it makes it more believable because it's mitochondrial integration.
Okay.
And it's where they just got some human in them, period. And it wasn't necessarily evidence that they had entered their structure. No, bears had gotten to our structure, but by say evidence, No, we never knew that they did. We found holes in it a lot, and stuff tore apart where they went in. But I think we kind of thought that was more of a bear, what a bear would do. These things, they wouldn't, kind of like they respect us a little bit. I don't know. They've actually moved our deer carcasses that we had hanging on a cable behind our shelter, but they never took them. But you found prints underneath them. One time when we raked out, we knew they were studying our deer, and they were studying us. And we raked out underneath our deer and went over and was eating. So well, let's go back and look at it. We took our flashlights, went back there. There's 3 big tracks right underneath the deer. Now something stood there.
That sure gets your attention to wake up to that in the morning.
Well, while we're sitting out there eating around our stove, something's watching us from over the shelter, top of the shelter. Look, had to be 8 foot tall to do that.
From mysterious Oklahoma, could Ron elaborate on the anomalous craft that presented itself at camp?
Anomalous craft. Well, I seen a UFO, but it wasn't. It was just a big ball. It's nothing to elaborate on. But coming down from the sky, it was like the moon falling, except it was controlled. A good example of an anomaly up there was what David Pilates recreated in his 401 film. That light going by our tent, it looked just like that. I mean, he really, his videography did a really good job. He had me point to where it went and how fast it went, and he had it going just the same way, right through the trees. What do you do with something like that? You don't know what it's going to do, but it's a form of energy. It's a control, something intelligent. And again, but energy and matter are interchangeable. So who knows? That's something most people don't really get. The energy and matter are interchangeable. If you find the frequency of anything, you can change it. Change the frequency of anything, you can change it.
I got to give a shout out here, Ron. Our moderator, Kashu Gesundheit here. You can literally mention any book, any website, whatever. She will pop it up there in the chat for everybody to look at. She's got superpowers as far as a moderator goes. And like you showed Scott's book, bam, there's a Sasquatch DNA study, Truth Denied, and mentioned David Pilates there. She's advertised your book several times, as well as mine throughout the evening as well. So
that's nice. Thank you.
We definitely appreciate Cashew. She does a wonderful job. Does anyone else have any questions for Ron this evening? So he's been nice enough to stay on here nearly an hour and a half. And Ron, if there's anything else you want to talk about, you just take off with it. I'll let you.
We'll sign out now. I just want to say, keep your vibrational frequency high. Don't talk bad. If you can't say something good, don't say something at all.
You know what? That is great advice.
And keep love and compassion at the top of your list, and everything's going to work out better for you. No matter what circumstance you're given, no matter what, try to keep it on a positive note. And that's what I try to say. All these things, because that's how we're going to get into a higher dimension when we leave this planet. And I think we're headed for the 5th dimension. By the way, when you're outside this planet's environment, time does not exist as we perceive it in a linear framework here. And it's just, well, I talk about that a little bit in my book, how you can go outside this and travel at the speed of light or just below it. Depends on how fast you're going, and it's all about gravity out there. And time you come back and you might spend a year out in space and come back and I think 230 years have passed on Earth. So you talk about how aliens might go so far and come back in a couple 100,000 years. Well, they may have been only gone a year or two.
That's mind-boggling.
You don't understand. It's hard to get your head around it, but
isn't it amazing though that what Einstein and back 80 years ago or more was contemplating with nothing but chalk and a chalkboard or pencil and paper. They're just now catching up with the technology. They can actually say, yes, he was right. That's just amazing to me. And
well,
Ron,
quantum physics rides on the back of of Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics is what we've been living by, what we're taught in the fifth grade, like I mentioned earlier. But quantum physics is how everything works. People think it just works in the micro world, the little world, microwave oven or cell phone or something. But no, according to Dr. Christopher Baird, B-A-I-R-D, in West Texas A&M, he said everything from the atom to the stars works in the laws of quantum physics. So for people to say it only works in the micro world, baloney. It's not true. It works throughout the universe. And I think everybody's getting more and more of that information out. They just want to research. And I think that's what you got to do.
Well, on that, Ron, I greatly appreciate you coming on tonight. And it looks like everybody over in the chat is too. Good things.
Well, thank you.
And you know what, everybody, unless there were some trolls that we didn't see that the moderators took care of, everybody was just nice. Like what you said, say something nice, and everybody was. So I appreciate everyone in chat for joining us. And again, thank you, Ron, for being part of the show tonight, and hope we can do it again sometime.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the invite, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoy talking about this subject because I just wanted to ring true to somebody out there, make a difference. That's all you want your life to do is make a difference.
Well, we make a good difference. That's about all we can ask.
Well, you want to make a good difference.
Yeah, is that not what I said? I hope I said.
No, I didn't say that. I want to make a good difference.
Yeah, definitely that. All right.
Okay, Dave. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.